Every rider remembers that first bike, the sound and the way the world cracked open. You thought it was just a machine. It wasn't. It was a mirror that showed who you were and who you'd spend the rest of your life chasing. Tonight, we're pulling back the throttle on that truth, what your first motorcycle really gave you, and what it quietly took away. The spark. You don't choose your first motorcycle, it chooses you. It appears when you least expect it, maybe leaning under a flickering shop light, maybe sitting on a neighbor's lawn with a handwritten for sale sign. You circle it like prey and promise yourself you're just looking. But the truth is, it's already decided. The smell of fuel and dust hits first. The seat is cracked, the paint faded, but your pulse rises as if it's new. You reach for the handlebar, twist the throttle, and that sound, that first rough growl, sends a current through you stronger than any handshake or oath you've ever made. When the engine catches, everything else fades. The noise isn't just mechanical, it's a signal. Your chest thumps in rhythm with every pulse of that single cylinder, and you know life just split into two halves, before this and after. You take your first cautious breath as exhaust hangs in the air and the world feels wider, louder, hungrier. It's not ownership, it's ignition. Something elemental clicks inside you. Fire meeting air, curiosity meeting courage. From that instant, you belong to a different tribe. You'll tell yourself it's just a machine that you can walk away whenever you want. But you won't. Because what started that day wasn't a hobby. It was a transformation. And the road's first lesson comes fast. It never lets you feel invincible for long. Baptism by asphalt. The first ride feels like freedom until the first mistake arrives. Maybe it's the stall at a green light, the wobble in a corner, the back tire slipping where the pavement still glistens with rain. Your heart jumps into your throat, and for one terrified heartbeat, you think you've ruined everything. But that's how every rider is baptized, not with champagne, but with fear and grit. You don't forget the sting of your first fall, the scrape on your knee, the dent on the tank, the shame of people watching. You learn the ground has no sympathy, and that asphalt carries memory. Each scar in the metal feels personal, like it knows your name. Yet when you pick the bike up, shaking, hands slick with adrenaline, something extraordinary happens. The fear doesn't drive you away. It pulls you closer. You start to respect the danger, not resent it. You begin to feel what few understand, the strange mix of control and surrender. You grip the bars a little tighter, breathe a little slower, and every nerve sharpens. The road is no longer a place you travel, it's a teacher. And every mile, every mistake is a lesson written in vibration and sweat. The road humbles you, but in that humility, you start seeing the rider hiding behind your reflection. If this hit home already, drop a like right now and tell me in the comments. What was your first bike, and do you still think about it? Every story's different, but every rider remembers that first spark. The mirror in the helmet. When you slide the visor down, the world disappears. The reflection staring back isn't just your face, it's who you're becoming. The first motorcycle has a way of showing you every flaw you didn't know you carried. Impatience. The clutch punishes it. Arrogance. The road erases it. Fear. It rides beside you until you learn to nod back. Out there, stripped of noise and excuses, you find honesty. The kind that can't be faked or posted. You start noticing how your breathing syncs with the engine, how your heartbeat steadies when the road straightens. Confidence doesn't arrive all at once. It builds quietly, corner after corner. Every throttle roll teaches control. Every stop sign teaches restraint. You realize that trust isn't something the bike owes you. It's something you earn through attention and respect. That first ride, that first machine becomes your mirror, a relentless, beautiful judge. It reflects your best and worst moments, sometimes in the same mile. You can't lie to it. And in learning to ride, you learn to listen. To yourself, to instinct, to consequence. The reflection changes over time, but the truth never does. You are only as calm as your grip, only as strong as your balance. And when that mirror finally shows you who you are, it reveals what you truly signed up for. Before we go further, a quick pit stop. The road teaches fast, so ride prepared. I've linked the gear and accessories I trust in the description. Take a second, then let's keep rolling. The unspoken pact. You thought you bought freedom. What you really signed was a lifelong contract with a responsibility. Every ignition is a promise to stay alert, to respect what can turn on you in a blink. The road doesn't care about pride, and the throttle doesn't forgive distraction. You sit behind that headlight knowing each mile could ask for more than you can give, and still you twist the grip anyway. That's the paradox. Courage isn't loud, it's quiet persistence. Somewhere between the hum of the tires and the rush of the wind, you realize you've agreed to something deeper. Every start button, every gear shift, whispers the same reminder. Risk rides pillion. It's always there, close enough to breathe on your neck. But instead of fear, it gives you focus. You ride not to escape danger, but to coexist with it. You don't chase freedom, you manage it. Years later, you might forget the model name or the top speed, but you'll never forget that silent pact. The one written in sweat and heartbeat, signed the moment your hand first touched the throttle. You didn't just learn how to ride, you learned how to live with consequence. And in that balance between risk and reward lies the truth every rider discovers. The bike never lied to you. It simply demanded honesty in return. You paid with adrenaline then, but now the road wants interest. The price of speed. Every rider learns the same truth. The first thrill carries a tab. The first bike doesn't just burn fuel, it burns through money, patience, and naivety. The first time you drop it, you feel the weight of consequence. A cracked mirror, a bent lever, a bruise that throbs with equal parts pain and pride. You limp home, check the damage, and realize that freedom has a bill of materials. You don't pay it in dollars at first. You pay in time, sweat, and that gnawing thought that maybe you weren't ready. The insurance call comes next. You stumble through the questions, the waiting, the slow bleed of savings. Repair receipts stack like poker chips on the kitchen counter. Each line item is a reminder that passion is rarely practical. You tell yourself the upgrade is worth it. A better exhaust, a louder pipe, maybe a new set of tires that grip tighter. Every improvement feels like progress until you check the numbers. The dream that once fit in your hands now fits into your monthly budget. And yet, you keep riding. Because even as the bills mount, the engine's pull still outweighs the logic. You'd trade a weekend's pay just to hear that motor sing again. It's irrational, and you know it. But that's the price of speed. You're buying seconds of freedom with hours of labor. The costs don't stop at the register. Some debts get paid in the quiet hours of the garage. The long night in the garage. The garage becomes your second home and your second teacher. You start the night planning a quick fix and end it surrounded by tools, sweat, and quiet cursing. You learn more from stripped bolts than any online tutorial could teach. Your knuckles split open, your patience runs thin, and the cold floor becomes familiar. Somewhere between frustration and focus, the noise fades, replaced by the click of sockets and the steady rhythm of persistence. Oil stains mark your progress like scars of experience. You turn mistakes into lessons, a cross-threaded plug, a lost washer, a drained battery. The machine doesn't forgive ignorance, but it rewards effort. You stop fearing failure and start understanding it. Every stubborn bolt teaches humility. Every successful fix restores faith. The garage light hums overhead while hours slip by unnoticed. What began as punishment becomes therapy. When the bike finally fires again, it feels earned, not given. That roar in the dark isn't just combustion, it's a quiet victory. You realize the work never ends. It only shifts from parts to patience. Somewhere along the line, the garage stopped being a workspace. It became a confession booth where you face yourself, wrench in hand, learning that commitment costs more than cash. The money and sweat are measurable, but the clock takes more than either of them ever could. Dead of time riding eats hours like fire eats fuel. You tell yourself it's only for a quick loop, a 30-minute escape, but somehow the sun sets before you realize how far you've gone. Weekends blur into miles and life beyond the road grows smaller in your mirrors. Friends call less, family waits longer, but you tell yourself you'll make it up next week. You don't. The ride has already claimed its share of your calendar. Work suffers, chores pile up and bills sit unopened on the counter, but none of that matters once the engine turns over. The road doesn't care about schedules. It runs on its own clock, one that measures in heartbeats instead of minutes. You start to understand the trade. Every hour you spend riding is one you can never reclaim, but it's also one that keeps you sane. You're not escaping life, you're balancing it, 1 mile at a time. Time becomes currency and you spend it freely. Maybe too freely. Years later, you look back and realize you weren't chasing freedom. You were chasing the version of yourself that only existed on that first bike. And though you can't buy youth back, the throttle lets you rent it for an afternoon. Even when the hours are gone and the machine is sold, the final invoice hasn't been sent yet. The hidden receipt. You think the payments stop when you sell that first bike. They don't. The real cost lives inside you. Habits, reflexes, and the constant hum of vigilance. You still scan mirrors out of instinct, check blind spots when you're walking, and measure corners in your car as if leaning through them. The road rewired you, and the bill for that kind of change never clears. The price isn't printed, it's felt. Every time you hear an engine echo through town, something inside you stirs. Recognition mixed with longing. You can't help it. That sound reminds you who you became and what you risked to get there. It's not regret exactly. It's awareness, the kind that sharpens rather than fades. The bike may be gone, but the rider remains. You start noticing how that old discipline spills into everything. The way you approach work, danger, even people. You're cautious but never timid. You've seen what happens when confidence turns careless. Riding taught you that everything of value carries risk, love, money. You start noticing how that old discipline spills into everything. The way you approach work, danger, even people. You're cautious but never timid. You've seen what happens when confidence turns careless. Riding taught you that everything of value carries risk, love, money, time, pride. You pay for them all the same way, with attention. That's the hidden receipt no one warns you about. And even after all these years, when the wind hits your face just right or the scent of gasoline drifts by, the total comes due again. Not in dollars, but in memory. But you weren't the only one paying. The whole culture was being shaped. The handshake at the stoplight. It starts simple, a nod at a red light. Two riders, strangers in traffic, acknowledging something that people in cars will never understand. No words, no introductions, just that slow tilt of the helmet that says, "I see you." It's a ritual older than social media, older than brand wars, older even than the bikes themselves. The first time it happens, you feel a jolt of pride you didn't expect. You're not just a rider anymore. You're part of a lineage. That silent gesture says you've earned your place on the road. The handshake at the stoplight isn't about friendliness. It's about recognition. It's one heartbeat of mutual respect between equals who risk the same weather, the same drivers, and the same road. You share the knowledge that you've both been inches from disaster and miles from home, and still you keep riding. That nod is the closest thing to prayer most riders ever share. When you pull away, you feel lighter, like the road just added your name to its long roll call. Brotherhood in motorcycling isn't built on clubs or jackets first. It's built on that shared understanding, that instant connection between people who know what the wind feels like at 60 and the weight of silence after a near miss. The nod is only the beginning. The real brotherhood is forged where the tools meet the talk. Wrenches, wisdom, and war stories. Every garage has its language, spoken through the sound of ratchets and the smell of hot oil. Somewhere in that noise, advice passes between riders like family recipes. You remember the first time an older hand leaned over your shoulder and said, "Don't force it, feel it." You didn't just learn about torque, you learned patience. That's how the Brotherhood educates. Manuals can teach specifications, but only experience teaches instinct. You see it at every roadside diner, every swap meet, every poker run. The circle of riders swapping stories about breakdowns, bad weather, and the one time they almost lost it all. The details change, but the rhythm is the same. It's not bragging, it's survival wisdom wrapped in humor. Each story ends with a laugh that hides the truth, that everyone in that room has been scared enough to pray, and that fear binds them tighter than Chrome ever could. The Brotherhood's true currency isn't money or miles, it's experience paid forward. One scar at a time, the veterans teach because someone once taught them. You pick up their lessons the way a mechanic collects old wrenches, worn, trusted, indispensable. In this circle, respect isn't demanded. It's earned over time with proof in grease and grit. Those lessons shape more than your skills. They define your loyalty to the machines and the names stamped on their tanks. Brand bloodlines. Ask 10 riders about their brand and you'll hear 10 stories that sound like family history. For some, the badge on the tank is sacred. Harley, Indian, Triumph, BMW, names spoken like prayers, each one with its own congregation. The emblem is more than metal, it's a declaration. It tells the world what kind of rider you are, what kind of miles you respect, what kind of noise you worship. That loyalty runs deeper than advertising. It's an inheritance. Your first bike often decides your allegiance. Maybe it was a worn-out Sportster that leaked oil but never quit, or an old Bonneville that taught you the grace of precision. That machine becomes your bloodline. Even if you ride something different years later, part of your heart stays loyal to that first crest on the tank. You learn that riders don't just buy bikes, they buy belief systems. The badge becomes a mirror of your values: toughness, independence, rebellion, craftsmanship. Brand loyalty becomes its own language. A Harley man spots another instantly. An Indian rider nods with quiet pride. A Triumph rider speaks torque like poetry. It's not competition, it's communion, proof that every badge carries a heritage deeper than decades. Yet no matter what brand you swear by, every rider still answers to one authority higher than logos: the unwritten code of the road itself. If you've ridden this far with me, you get it. Bikes aren't just machines, they're memories with engines. Hit subscribe, join the Garage Heads crew, and don't miss the next story that'll make you feel that first ride all over again. The code of the road. Every community needs a creed, and for riders it isn't printed in any manual. It lives in small acts that outsiders never notice. A lifted hand on a lonely highway, a rider slowing to check on someone pulled to the shoulder, a stranger lending tools without question. These gestures aren't charity, they're duty. The code of the road doesn't need enforcement because it's stitched into every true rider's conscience. You remember the first time you saw it in action. Someone you didn't know stopping when your chain snapped or your clutch cable failed. No exchange of names, just the universal handshake of help. You learned more about loyalty that day than any dealership brochure could ever teach. The code says, respect the road, protect each other, ride like someone taught you, because someone did. That unspoken creed is what keeps chaos from claiming the asphalt. It's why riders wave at children, why they ride staggered in groups, why they carry the weight of discipline when no one's watching. Every rule written by experience became moral law. It's the reason you keep your distance in the rain, the reason you slow near gravel, the reason you nod when you pass a stranger on two wheels. You're not just following tradition, you're preserving it. The Brotherhood is larger than any garage or brand. It's a living chain of respect stretching across generations. Your first bike didn't just make you a rider, it made you a custodian of a code older than the machines themselves. But now the code is being rewritten by forces your first bike never knew. The quiet revolution. The roar is fading. The future rolls in on silence. The new machines hum instead of growl, whisper instead of shout. You can feel it every time an electric bike slips past without warning. Efficient, clean, soulless. Progress is quiet, they say, but to a rider who grew up on thunder, that silence feels like betrayal. The engineers call it evolution, but it sounds more like extinction. You remember the sound of your first motorcycle, the uneven idle, the heartbeat through your gloves, the noise that made conversation impossible and life unforgettable. It was chaos, but it was human. The new world trades that heartbeat for algorithms and torque curves that never falter. They run smoother, smarter, faster, but perfection has no pulse. When everything works without vibration, you start to wonder if something vital was lost in the noise we left behind. There's no smell of fuel now, no oil-stained rags in the corner of the garage, charging cables replace fuel cans, and software replaces wrenches. Convenience wins, but connection fades. The machine doesn't need you anymore. It just tolerates you. Maybe that's progress, or maybe it's proof that humanity can engineer its own distance. The future may be electric, but the heart of riding now runs on something even rarer: memory turned into money. Economy of nostalgia. Look around any auction floor or backlot swap meet, and you'll see what nostalgia costs. Old iron gleams brighter than new plastic. Machines that once sat rusting in barns now sell for more than cars. Heritage has become its own market, a way to buy back a feeling that technology can't duplicate. Riders spend thousands restoring what time already blessed, because it's not just about horsepower anymore. It's about holding a piece of who we used to be. Companies have noticed. Every brochure drips with words like classic, revival, and heritage edition. They bottle the past and sell it in limited runs. You can order nostalgia now, wrapped in chrome and digital safety nets. The irony burns. The same industries that chase speed and silence now profit from reminding us what real once felt like. Emotion is the new luxury. Authenticity has a price tag. But not all nostalgia is for sale. Some of it lives in the way older riders talk, the spark in their eyes when they describe a kickstart on a cold morning, or the grin that creeps in when they remember the first time they got caught in the rain. Those stories outlast warranties. In a world obsessed with upgrades, memory is the only thing appreciating in value. Yet even as nostalgia sells and memories shine, the road itself is changing, reshaped not by riders, but by rules. The law versus the ride. The open road that once promised freedom now hums with invisible fences. Emission caps, noise restrictions, digital tracking, all built in the name of safety and sustainability. The same throttle that once symbolized rebellion now carries a compliance chip. You used to twist it and feel defiance. Now you wonder if someone somewhere is measuring it. You can't fault progress entirely. Cleaner air matters. Fewer accidents matter. But something in the balance feels off. Freedom once earned through skill and respect is being replaced by permission granted through policy. It's no longer your decision to ride hard or take the long way home. It's a calculation approved by the machines watching you. The regulators call it safety. Riders call it surrender. Your first bike would fail inspection today. Too loud, too raw, too alive. It broke every rule and proved risk was the real reward. Riding was never about safety. It was about honesty, that sacred handshake between rider and road. And still, riders adapt. They always have. Every new restriction spawns a workaround, every rule a new kind of rebellion. The spirit that built the brotherhood doesn't vanish. It mutates, waiting for another open stretch of asphalt. The laws may tighten, the engines may change, but one truth refuses to fade. The rider you became on that first machine never really left. The last kickstart. Every generation of riders faces its reckoning, and yours begins at dusk, when the garage lights hum and the air smells like memory. The world outside is changing faster than engines can turn, but inside that quiet space you can still hear the echo of your first ignition. That sound isn't nostalgia, it's identity. It's proof that once you touched something untamed and it touched you back. You think about how far the road has carried you, through jobs, heartbreaks, years, losses, and miles. The first motorcycle didn't just teach you balance, it taught you honesty. It showed you that freedom always costs something, and that risk is just another word for being awake. The metal might rust, the paint might fade, but the lesson remains stainless. One day you may hang up the helmet. Your knees will ache, your hands will tremble, and the bikes will get lighter while the traffic gets heavier. But the spark never leaves. It hums somewhere in your chest, quiet but constant. That's the real engine now, the one built of memory, discipline, and gratitude. We've all chased that same rush from our first throttle twist, but every mile since has been paying the tab. The truth is, the road doesn't take, it just tests who's still got the fire. Drop your story below. What bike started it all for you? Hit like if your hands still remember the bars, and subscribe for more real rider talk. No hype, no spin, just the truth from the garage floor.